Okay, welcome to video number 44 of the Diaries of a Coronavirologist YouTube channel. Today is the 2nd of December, and we are up to 64.3 million confirmed cases of COVID-19 around the world, and we're getting close to 1.5 million confirmed deaths. So today some great news came from the UK, who have become the first in the West to approve the use of a COVID-19 vaccine outside of clinical trials. So you may have seen this in the news. This is the Pfizer/BioNTech vaccine that has been approved. So BioNTech are a German biotech company who produced the vaccine, and Pfizer are the American company who have been funding all of the clinical development of this. So it's a collaborative effort between the two companies. And today the UK gave approval for its usage and its rollout into people outside of clinical trials. So I've talked a lot about vaccines on this channel, especially recently with a spate of vaccine trial news that's been coming out. I've also talked about this vaccine quite a lot in various different places throughout the channel. But I thought today for this video, I'd try and do a catch-all for various different aspects of things I've talked about with regards to this vaccine. So this may be a little bit repetitive to those who regularly watch my channel, but I want this to be a video that has all the information that I think is the major information and the major questions and concerns about this vaccine, to group it all together as recap for those who watch regularly, but also as a video that may be a good one to share with people. I'm already seeing within my friends and social media networks and things, there's a lot of questions coming out about this vaccine. And so this video aims to be one that has a lot of the information that are the kind of things people are talking about and are asking about, to be one that can be shared and hopefully provides good information. So the topics I'll cover in the video are going to be what the vaccine is and how it works. So how the vaccine is going to help protect people from catching SARS-CoV-2 and developing COVID-19. I'll talk about this idea of whether it's been rushed, because this is one that I keep seeing time and time again, so I'm going to go back over that idea. I'll talk about the idea of side effects, short-term and long-term, and I'll also talk a little bit about whether there will be a need to get this vaccine every year like we do for flu vaccines or not. All of those different ideas I'm going to put timestamps to down in the description for this video, so you can navigate to them as you choose. And I'll also put links to all my other videos where I've talked about this vaccine or similar ones on the channel in the past, so you can go back to other videos if you want more description in each of the areas, because I won't necessarily do long discussions on all of these different aspects. But if you want more information, there's other things you can find on my channel in previous videos. Before I go into the topics though, I just want to say a very general point about this video and other ones on the channel. I'm not trying to preach or sway anyone into taking the vaccine if they are against it. That is the individual choice of everyone out there, whether they do or don't take the vaccine. My preference would be that everyone takes the vaccine because vaccines save lives, but everyone has the right to choose whether they do or don't. I merely want this video and all the others on the channel to be a source of knowledge so that you can make informed decisions and you can spread that knowledge in discussions you may have in person or online. There's a lot of misinformation and disinformation about everything in the world, and my only goal with this channel is to be a source of information about coronaviruses and what's going on from someone who studies coronaviruses in an academic lab. I study coronaviruses from a standpoint of curiosity. I don't have financial interests in any of these companies. It doesn't impact my life directly if Pfizer is successful or if Moderna or is successful or whoever it may be. I just have this channel here to talk about what's going on and to spread information, because that way people can be more informed about these vaccines and about everything that is happening. Because of that, probably the biggest chunk of the video will be actually talking about how the vaccine works rather than the other aspects. But of course, I'm going to talk about those as well. Anyway. Okay, so the vaccine itself is an mRNA vaccine, and it's the first mRNA vaccine to be approved for use in humans. It's the first time we've managed to make one that actually works, which is great. mRNA stands for messenger ribonucleic acid, and mRNA is the instructions that our cells use to produce proteins, which make up us and all life we see around us. Now, just to take a step back and do a bit of biology 101, the human genome is encoded by DNA. So within every cell in our body, there is the genetic instructions to produce everything that makes us tick, makes us live. And that's encoded as DNA, which is deoxyribonucleic acid. In order for that storage information to go into the active unit of a protein, DNA needs to be made into mRNA, which has the instructions that make the proteins. So using mRNA to produce proteins is something that our bodies are constantly doing. Right now, I'm making numerous proteins from numerous mRNAs as I use that there watching this video. So there's nothing inherently strange and foreign about mRNA. It's something very natural to our bodies. But now let me bring in the idea of viruses, because we're talking about this vaccine, which is preventing infection from a virus. So the SARS coronavirus 2 virus, which causes COVID-19, is an RNA virus. So unlike us, it contains all its genetic material in that RNA form, not in the DNA form. So the virus particle is just essentially a ball of fats and proteins that surround the genetic material to make more copies of the virus. The virus's only aim in life, if I can ascribe some kind of aim to a virus, is to make more copies of itself. It's to get its RNA genome into our cells, hijack those cells by tricking them to thinking that the virus's RNA is our own, and that has the instructions to make more and more virus particles. The virus hijacks our cells, turns them into essentially a factory to produce more virus particles. They go off, infect more cells, and infect more people. That's all a virus does. And unfortunately, our cells are very easily tricked by the virus because to our cells, the virus's RNA genome looks just like our own mRNAs. It can't tell that it's something different, and it just blindly makes the proteins. So in order to make more SARS-2 viruses, there's around 20 to 30 different proteins that are produced, and they make lots and lots of copies and make lots and lots of copies of the virus to produce more and more and more. So then this brings us to the vaccine, which, as I say, is an mRNA vaccine. And the mRNA that encodes instructions to produce protein is the instructions to produce just one of the proteins from the SARS-2 virus. So as I said, there's about 20 to 30 different proteins that make up that virus. The mRNA in the vaccine is the instructions to produce just one of those proteins. As a metaphor, if you think about having instructions to produce a car, it would be like having just the instructions to produce the wheels. So you can make the wheels, but nothing else. Everything else has been stripped away, and you only have the instructions for the wheels or the one protein. That one protein is called the spike protein, and that's the one that sticks out on the surface of the virus. So when you see those classic pictures with every news article that you may see about SARS-2 and COVID-19, it's always the ball with the bits that stick out. The bits that stick out are the spike protein, and within the vaccine, the RNA, the mRNA, that is in the vaccine has the instructions to produce the spike protein for SARS-2, but nothing else. So the vaccine makes our cells produce the spike protein. Again, our cells can't tell that that mRNA has come from outside. It just thinks it's its own mRNA. It produces the spike protein. But alone, the spike protein doesn't cause any damage. The damage comes from all of the different proteins of the SARS-2 virus that are being made by our cells when a virus infects, but one protein alone doesn't cause damage. So our cells, when they receive the vaccine, start to produce this spike protein, and our immune system sees that. Now, while our cells are tricked into just making protein from the mRNA instructions that are given in the vaccine and they think everything's fine, our immune system is able to detect that that is something foreign. The immune system can tell that the spike protein isn't a normal human protein, and that raises the alarm. That causes our immune system to kick in, and we start to mount our immune response. And in this process, we produce antibodies that will bind to that spike protein. So when you get the vaccine, you make the spike protein, this triggers antibodies to be produced which bind to that spike protein, and our immune system learns what those antibodies need to look like in order to attach to that spike protein, like finding a lock for a key. So that's what's going on when you receive the vaccine. Now, mRNA is inherently very unstable, and that's why we need to store it at super cold temperatures. As you may have heard for this vaccine, it needs to be kept at -80, -70, -80 Celsius. But it's also fairly unstable within our cells. It will be destroyed fairly quickly after the proteins are produced. So the mRNA goes into our cells, the cells produce the protein, the RNA is destroyed, those spike proteins go out into our body, our immune system sees them, and it deals with them, it gets rid of them. But it learns in that process, it's trained in that process to see what the spike protein looks like. So then should you encounter the SARS-2 virus, the real full virus, at a future time point, your immune system can instantly recognize the spike protein on that virus, and it can release the antibodies that will bind to that and stop it from infecting your cells. The antibodies that are produced as a result of the vaccine bind to the virus and stop it infecting cells. Therefore, the genetic material in the virus, the RNA that I was talking about earlier, can't go into our cells. It can't trick them to producing more proteins and more viruses, and you therefore aren't infected. So that's just a quick summary of what this vaccine is and how it protects us. The mRNA in the vaccine has the instructions that make our cells produce the spike protein. Our immune system sees that as something foreign and attacks it. It learns what the spike protein looks like so that when a real full virus that could cause us damage comes into our bodies, the immune system sees that and shuts it down straight away and blocks the ability of that virus to replicate and cause damage, thus protecting us from COVID-19. Now we've got a description of what the vaccine is and how it works to protect us. I want to move on to one of the other questions about whether this has been rushed through. This is the quickest production of a vaccine that has protective effects that's ever occurred. It's actually an amazing feat of science to produce a vaccine to a virus that we didn't even know existed at this time last year. The first cases of this weren't detected until the end of December 2019. And that, of course, leads people to think that we've rushed this process because there's such a clear need for it and we want to get a vaccine out, so have corners been cut and all those kind of questions. There is healthy skepticism and not such healthy skepticism, of course, out there. Now, while this has been produced incredibly rapidly, that doesn't mean it's been rushed. And so for this section of the video, I want to talk a little bit about that idea, that this is rapid, but it isn't rushed. This vaccine has gone through the same levels of testing that any other vaccine has in the past. However, this is not like any other disease outbreak we've experienced in the past. This is unprecedented is a word that's been used many times in 2020, and it truly is an unprecedented outbreak, which is why we've been able to have an unprecedented production of a vaccine. As a brief bit of background history, coronaviruses weren't really studied very much until the early 2000s. Nobody really cared about them, even though we have known about coronaviruses infecting humans since the 1960s. The early 2000s, 2002, 2003, saw the outbreak of SARS coronavirus, so SARS-1 coronavirus, if we want to do it that way, which spread around the world in about 8 months, caused about 8,000 cases and killed 10% of the people who were infected. So this led to a lot of research into coronaviruses, and a lot of attempts were made to produce vaccines for that virus. However, we were able to stop the spread of that virus very rapidly. Within 7 to 8 months, there were no more cases, and we've never had one since. A whole different topic for a whole different video is why that is the case, why SARS-1 disappeared and SARS-2 is what we have now. But just in brief, that largely comes down to the fact that people only spread SARS-1 when they're symptomatic and at their peak of the symptoms they are experiencing. So it's much easier to quarantine those people and to shut down spread of the virus. But because we were able to shut down spread of the virus, the vaccines that were produced against SARS-1 could never be properly tested. In order to see if a vaccine works, you actually need people to be getting sick, because you need to see if people who receive the vaccine are protected versus the people who receive a placebo. So while 8,000 cases and 800 deaths was far too many, we'd love to have zero, of course, that wasn't enough to allow for proper testing of a SARS-1 vaccine. And because we never had any cases after 2003, that had to all be shelved. All that research just went into a drawer somewhere, essentially. In 2012, another coronavirus emerged in the Middle East this time. So this is MERS coronavirus, Middle East Respiratory Syndrome coronavirus. And that's been spreading ever since 2013. But you don't hear much about it because it's only caused about 2,500 cases. 35% of the people who have been infected have died, so it's very deadly, but it doesn't spread very well. And again, what I was saying about SARS-1, we actually need the virus to spread and infect people to work out if a vaccine works, because MERS doesn't spread very well. All of the potential vaccines that were produced for MERS could never be properly tested. So we're at a situation coming into 2019 and 2020 where we've produced vaccine candidates against two different coronaviruses, SARS-1 and MERS, but we can never really test them. However, we did have the foundation and understanding of how to produce vaccines against those viruses that work in lab animals, so work in mice or monkeys, but we can never truly test them in humans. The difference now with SARS-2 is there's a lot of cases. If you haven't noticed, at the top of the video, I said there's 65 million people who've been infected with this virus. So there's an ample opportunity to test this vaccine to see if it's protective compared to a placebo injection. Moreover, we are so much more technologically advanced scientifically now than we were in 2002, 2003, when SARS-1 was spreading. We're much more technologically advanced than we were in 2012 when MERS emerged and people became really interested in it. We've also learned a lot in that time. So that foundation that we built for making vaccines to those coronaviruses has only got stronger because we continue to research vaccines and different methods, such as using mRNA, the Pfizer vaccine, and how to apply that. But until this virus started spreading, we never had a virus that spread at a level to allow us to test to see if it works. So while this vaccine has been produced very rapidly compared to other vaccines, that isn't because it's been rushed. It's gone through the same level of clinical trials. It's had its phase 1 safety trials on a small number of people. It's had its phase 2 trials, again, looking at safety, but in a bigger group. And it's had its phase 3 trials, looking at safety in an even bigger group and efficacy. So because this virus has spread so rampantly and has been so poorly controlled in many parts of the world, the vaccines have been able to be properly assessed. The number of cases that they've built their numbers of 95% efficacy from are the same as any other vaccine that has gone into humans. They've had to hit similar numbers. They've had to go through similar hoops. The difference is this virus is spreading so much more rapidly than any virus outbreak we've had to deal with in the past. So while development has been very rapid, it hasn't been rushed. Corners haven't been cut. Everything has been done as it would have been for any vaccine in the past that has been approved for use in humans. It's just because this virus is spreading so much, there's so much interest and a lot of money going into the development of vaccines that we have got to this point of producing a vaccine within a year. And I think that bodes well for the future. Should there be a SARS-3, should we get a flu pandemic of a new strain that hits the population, this is a great foundation for us to be able to rapidly produce vaccines that can be safe and effective in humans. And on that note of being safe, let's quickly talk about side effects. So, as I was saying, this vaccine has gone through the same level of safety assessment as any other vaccine that has gone into humans. It's done the phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 trials, all of which put safety as a paramount hurdle to go to the next one. A vaccine, if it's not safe, it won't go through phase 1 trials. If there's not enough people in the phase 1 trial, there's a lot more people in the phase 2 and even more people in the phase 3. Any major side effect would have been found. All that's been found are mild side effects. And these are things like pain at the site of injection, getting a sore arm if you've been injected, maybe struggling to raise it, feeling a bit of a bruise or something like that. That's a mild side effect. Some people, low incidence, so under 5% of people, develop things like a bit of a headache, mild fever, a bit of fatigue that lasts for a couple of days. So the kind of things you get when you're mildly ill, but that's because that's caused by your immune system. Those sort of mild symptoms of illness are your immune system responding to something foreign. So the fact that the people who get the vaccine are developing those kind of mild symptoms is a sign that their immune system is actually triggering into action and then mounting an immune response. So those are the only symptoms that have been found so far. Now, around this idea that this vaccine has been produced very rapidly, we've only been studying it for a few months. Since springtime was when people first started to receive doses of this vaccine in the phase 1 trial. There is an idea or a suggestion that maybe there's long-term side effects that we won't know until a long way down the line. Long-term side effects, though, aren't really something we have strong scientific evidence for from vaccines. Vaccines don't really cause long-term side effects. They come in, they do their thing, they cause you these mild discomforts for a few days, and that's it. There's very few long-term side effects that are the direct consequence of a vaccine. It's incredibly rare to have long-term side effects. So, of course, while if there was something, we may not have had enough time to achieve that, the likelihood that there is anything is super rare. So, I really don't think this is a concern regarding the vaccine. The major side effects that would have been picked out and should have been picked out are the ones that are the acute things. So when you first get the injection, if over the next day or two you develop a really severe fever, suffer dehydration or something along the lines of because of the fever, that's the kind of thing that stops vaccines or drugs going through from phase 1 to phase 2 to phase 3 trials. This vaccine has been assessed every step along the way and hasn't shown any severe side effects. So again, moving through the topics and trying to connect them a little bit, thinking forward to going through time and building on whether there would be long-term side effects. The question to tackle here is, will we need to receive this vaccine every year? It's obviously going to be a while till everyone starts receiving this vaccine, so we're looking years down the line now. But to say it very briefly, we just don't know right now. So obviously with influenza vaccination, you need to get that every year. But that's because the virus mutates very rapidly and it escapes the antibodies that we produce to inhibit it and stop it infecting our cells. We don't know if that's going to happen with the SARS coronavirus 2. That virus mutates nowhere near as rapidly as influenza, so it's possible we wouldn't need to be vaccinated every year. But that really remains to be seen. And because of that, this vaccine is going to continue being assessed in the people that are part of the clinical trial for months and years on. So there is still going to be assessment of this ongoing for the next years because we need to work out whether you do need to get dosed every year or not. So safety, again, is going to be a paramount aspect of that. So if there are any long-term side effects that start to emerge, the people who are part of the clinical trial, who are amazing to go into clinical trials, they're the ones who are going to start to show if there are any long-term consequences. But again, I think that's going to be incredibly rare, and I don't think it's something that we're going to be seeing. As for the question of whether we'll need seasonal coronavirus vaccination along with seasonal influenza vaccination, it's just too soon to tell. I think it's possible we may need it every 2 years. That would be my guess if I was to speculate. And my final thing to say on this video is, how long will it be until you or I are able to get this vaccine? It's going to take a long time. There's no getting away from that fact. It's going to be the best part of a year until I or you probably can get the vaccine. The rollout and the distribution of these is going to take time. That's the stumbling block, is actually getting these out there, getting the vaccine doses produced and getting them to the people that need to be given them. Pfizer have come out to say that they can produce 1.3 billion doses by the end of next year, but you need 2 doses, 2 different shots of this vaccine for it to be effective. So that's 650 million people. That doesn't cover a lot of the world's population, and everyone is going to be fighting for those doses. Many governments have already got deals in place for a certain number of doses, but there's nowhere near enough to cover a full population. So there is going to be some degree of scarcity for the doses, which means there's going to be prioritization. And in the UK, they're going to be prioritising healthcare workers and the elderly. And the US, I'm sure, will be the same. And the EU, who are the other places where Pfizer are trying to get this vaccine licensed right now. So it's going to be going into the elderly, who are the most vulnerable population, or the elderly and the most vulnerable populations, those with underlying health conditions, and the frontline healthcare workers who are right in the firing line of this virus because of having patients that they are trying to take care of. So they're going to get this first, and then it's going to roll out into a wider spectrum of the population. Someone like myself, even though I work in a coronavirus lab, I'm probably somewhere down at the bottom of the list because I'm not even in my 30s for another few days, and I'm healthy. I have no underlying health conditions. So it will be a while till we get this. And why I really want to stress that fact is because just because a vaccine has been given approval for use in humans doesn't mean this pandemic is over. It's going to be the best part of 2021 and into 2022 before vaccines are really widely available to people. we're still going to have to be physically distancing. We're still going to have to wear face masks and be really conscious about washing our hands, all the kind of things that we're doing now. However, what these vaccines are giving us is light at the end of the tunnel for that. They're giving us a view to a semblance of normalcy. So while the distribution is happening through the next year, even though it may not be widely available, the fact that more and more people will start to get vaccinated, have vaccines available, more and more people have been infected and have recovered from the viral infection, we start to hit that level of herd immunity where things can start to safely open up again and viral spread will go down. So it is going to be a while till the vaccine is available to the majority of the people who watch this channel. But there's light at the end of the tunnel and vaccines are on the way, and more, I suspect, are going to be approved over the coming months. And that's all the major topics I wanted to talk about in this video about the Pfizer BioNTech vaccine that's just been granted approval in the UK and probably will be soon in the US and the EU. I'm sure there's many things I haven't even thought about, many questions and concerns people have that I haven't tackled here. And if that's the case, please do leave questions and comments down below on this video, and I will do my best to get to them. If there's enough, I can do another video, but I'll probably just answer it in the comments. So if you've got questions, concerns, things I haven't tackled, things I haven't explained properly, please do leave a comment down below, and I will do my best to get back to you. And with all that said, thank you for watching. The video is a little bit longer than I was intending, but I really wanted to make it this place of information about everything going on that you can hopefully refer back to and share with people as you see fit. If you enjoyed the video, please drop a like for the YouTube metrics and subscribe if you're new around here and you like the video so you can get notifications for new ones. As I say, please do leave questions, comments if there's things you think I missed, if there's things you want me to discuss, and I'll tackle them in the comments section as time allows me to. And as I always say in these videos, please stay safe, wash your hands, wear a mask, and keep calm and carry on. We will get through this pandemic. There is light at the end of the tunnel with these vaccines.